how do you have your characters gain inspiration, and how can they use inspiration in your game, and why do you do it that way?
So inspiration is definitely something that I never give out ever. It's one of those things where I maybe give it out, maybe in a span of 30 sessions, I maybe give it out 5 times, which makes it very special. I like my players know when I give out inspiration, like cherish it above everything else. In addition to that, the inspiration that they are given can't be used for everything. What it can be used for is before you roll a dice, you can declare you're using your inspiration and you gain advantage on that roll. No rolling bad and then rolling again. No, making the enemy roll bad. No, it is just flat out getting advantage, which sometimes, plenty of times it ends up being that you just roll bad twice or you roll good twice and it doesn't matter. But the fact that inspiration is so sparse in my games makes it unique. I know a lot of DMs give it out more frequently or they never give it out. But I think I like a minimal number. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, I don't give it out very often. Honestly, it kind of bugs me a little bit that there's a place on the character sheet for inspiration. Like it's expected that you're supposed to be getting inspiration somehow, honestly. But I do it very sparingly, and I do it really for something that was like a really great role playing element. I think that they some plan that they came up with, something that they off the wall really they wanted to try, and it was so epic and amazing. Like, wow, it's a great idea. I want to reward that. I want to reward the creative thinking. I want to reward the role playing. And so that's how I use it. But it is so sparing that it's not something I just give out like candy, and it's not something expected every session either. The way I let them use it is I do let them, they occasionally, they get so rare that they use it to re-roll something that they failed on. If they remember they even have inspiration, often they forget they even have it. So I'm not going to remind them of that. But so that's pretty much how I use inspiration. What about you, Caleb?
Well, I use it much in the same way. If somebody does something really creative or amazing, or just like, inspirational, well, not inspirational. If somebody does something like that I've never really seen before in a game, or they just do something that just makes so much sense for their character to do, I do to give them inspiration occasionally. And I also like to give inspiration, especially when I'm doing dungeon crawls, as kind of like an easy reward. If they manage to solve a puzzle or there's something a little bit extra they can do, I have that worked out. If they happen to do this specific thing and they save the disenchanter beast's baby and don't mess up, then they get just inspiration from that, just as just a general result. So I do like to sprinkle that in a lot when I'm writing in dungeons, and my players know pretty much after the first session that they need to use that as quickly as they can, because it technically doesn't go away, but they want to make sure that they strategically use the inspiration that I give them. Frederick, what do you think about inspiration?
Inspiration is like a giant pain in the butt. I've tried to run inspiration in my game as the book lays it out, and either I forget it or I find myself trying to rifle through all these bits of paper to find everybody's flaws to see if they role played their flaw to a disadvantage. If I don't forget to give it out to them, the players forget to use it. So in the end, I was giving out inspiration for everything under the sun. In fact, at times I would give out inspiration if they farted or burped, or if I farted or burped. And in fact, I would often just give out inspiration at the very beginning of the session, just so I didn't forget to actually give it out. And I know that sounds really, really bad, but when you get to a point where you're trying to track all this, and it's like, oh, will I ever remember to actually do that? There's so much going on. And how can they use it? I let them use it the same way the book says. They get advantage on a D20 roll. If they roll badly and they don't like the roll, then they can do it after. I don't really worry about them having to declare it beforehand. I don't really concern myself with that sort of thing. And I can understand why people would do it that way. And then if they want to give advantage to somebody else, they can. If they want to get rid of disadvantage off on a roll, I'll let them do that. If they want to apply disadvantage to one of my monsters, which has become extremely popular recently, I've discovered, I let them do that. So why do I do it that way? Because I don't know what else to do with inspiration. It is such a pain to deal with. I like Wally's way of doing inspiration better than my own. And I'm not even going to explain that. He can explain it to you someday. That's how I deal with inspiration.
Inspiration is just one, it was completely mislabeled by, there's too many instances of the word inspiration in the book, specifically with the bard. But it being telegraphed right there on the character sheet, this big old honking thing. It's it's as big as one of the stat blocks right there. So that tells you from a designer standpoint that inspiration should be important. And yet, more often than not, a lot of people forget about it, or depending on how the DM runs it, it's not useful or it's too useful, whatever the case may be. Something in regards of the dungeon crawling, I just thought of is, I think a fun way to put a tangible amount on inspiration is to say, hey, if you clear 5 rooms without making a short rest, then you gain inspiration. I think a system like that can definitely push people forward, potentially putting themselves at risk, but the risk reward could be awesome.
So let us know down in the comments how you give out inspiration, how you allow players to use inspiration in your game, and why you do it that way.